So this is January 30th, 2025. Finally getting caught up with some videos, getting a lot of materials out there. So we're going to jump into Daf Yomi. So if you're not familiar with Daf Yomi, it is the daily page that you study in the Talmud, Bavli. So I'm going to be working with the Koran Talmud Bavli. There's going to be a link in the description for this, as well as probably some other different publishers, affiliate links, obviously. If you purchase through those links, you'll help support the channel. But basically, so Daf is like a page, and Yomi is like the day, right? So to give you an example of how this actually operates, so this is the Gemara in Hebrew and Aramaic here, and basically you have generally you have like the Mishnah, and then the Gemara provides commentary on the Mishnah. So the Mishnah has they're the Tanaim. That's where you get that phrase. Those are the sages that you read about in the Mishnah, and then the sages that you read about in the Talmud are the Amorim. And then what you also have is you have these other additional sections of commentary that ended up getting into the printed editions, where you have Rashi and Tosafot. So Rashi, a lot of people are familiar with Rashi. He was a famous commentator. And then Tosafot are his some of his descendants from the marriages, son-in-laws, that type of descent, because he had daughters. So basically the Torah scholarship that was from his lineage, from his daughter's children, right? So basically you have Rashi and you have Tosafot, and that's basically makes up the printed Gemaras that we see today. So whenever it talks about a daf, you have two sides of a page. So basically there's a side A and there's a side B. So Amud Aleph and Amud Beit. So today, January 30th, the daf for the day is Sanhedrin 44. So let's see here. So it starts out, it says, what is the reason that in the case, this is picking up from, this is former discussion, so if you don't understand what's going on, no big deal. I'm just going to read through it. But what is the reason that in the case of Achan they were punished? The Gemara answers, Achan's offense was not a hidden matter because his wife and children knew about it and they did not protest. Okay, so new paragraph here. When God explained to Joshua the reason for the Jewish people's defeat at the city of Ai, he said, Israel has sinned, Joshua 7:11. Rabbi Abba Bar Zavda says, from here it may be inferred that even when the Jewish people have sinned, they are still called Yisrael. Rabbi Abba says, this is in accordance with the adage that people say, even when a myrtle is found among thorns, its name is myrtle, and people call it myrtle. The verse in Joshua continues, they have also transgressed my covenant which I commanded them, and they have also taken of the dedicated property, and also stolen, and also disassembled, and also put it among their own goods. Rabbi Elah says in the name of Rabbi Yehuda bar Masparta, this teaches that Achan also transgressed all 5 books of the Torah, as the word also is stated here 5 times. Or gam, right? Rabbi Elah says, further in the name of Rabbi Yehuda bar Masparta, Achan, in addition to his other evil actions, would stretch his remaining foreskin in order to conceal the fact that he was circumcised. An allusion to this offense is found in the wording of the verse. It says, here, with regard to Achan, it is written, they have also transgressed my covenant. And there, with regard to circumcision, it is written, he has violated my covenant. Genesis 17:14. So the Gemara asks, isn't it obvious that he concealed his circumcision, as Rabbi Elah said that he transgressed all 5 books of the Torah? The Gemara answers, lest you say that while Achan transgressed all 5 books of the Torah with regard to a mitzvah relating to his own body, such as circumcision, he did not act irreverently. Rabbi Elah teaches that he sinned concerning this mitzvah as well. So with regard to Achan, the verse states, and because he has committed a wanton deed in Israel, Joshua 7:15. Rabbi Abba Bar Zavda says, this teaches that Achan engaged in sexual intercourse with a betrothed young woman. This offense is also alluded to by the wording of the verse here. With regard to Achan, it is written, and because he has committed a wanton deed. And there, with regard to a betrothed young woman who committed adultery, it is written, because she has committed a wanton deed in Israel, to play the harlot in her father's house. Deuteronomy 22:21. The Gemara asks, isn't it obvious as Achan transgressed the entire Torah? The Gemara similarly answers, lest you say that he did not act irreverently to such an extent. Rabbi Abba Bar Zavda teaches us that he paid no heed even to this prohibition. Ravina said this verbal analogy does not teach that Achan's offense This verbal analogy does not teach what Achan's offense was. Rather, it teaches that his punishment was like that of a betrothed young woman who committed adultery, for which she is executed by stoning. The Exarch said to Rav Huna, it is written, and Joshua took Achan, son of Zerah, and the silver, and the mantle, and the wedge of gold, and his sons, and his daughters, and his oxen, and his asses, and his sheep, and his tent, and all that he had, and all Israel with him, and all Israel stoned him with stones, and they burned them with fire, and stoned them with stones. That's Joshua 7, verses 24 and 25. If Achan sinned so that he was liable to be stoned, did his sons and daughters also sin, that they too should be stoned? Rav Huna said to the Exarch, and according to your reasoning that Achan's family was also punished, if Achan sinned, did all of Israel sin? As it is written, and all Israel with him. Rather, Joshua took all the people to the valley of Achor, not to stone them, but to chastise them and strike fear into their hearts by making them witness the stoning. So too he took Achan's household there in order to chastise them. With regard to Achan's punishment, the verse states, and they burned them with fire and stoned them with stones. The Gemara asks, did they punish him with 2 punishments? Ravina says, that which was fit for burning, that is, an item of clothing, was taken out for burning, and that which was fit for stoning, such as an animal, was taken out for stoning. In his confession, Achan states, and I saw among the spoil a fine mantle of Shinar and 200 shekels of silver, Joshua 7:21. Rav says a mantle of Shinar is a cloak, itztela, of choice wool, demelta, and Shmuel says it is a garment, sarbella, dyed with alum. With regard to the spoils that Achan took for himself, the verse states, and they laid them out before the Lord, Joshua 7:23. Rav Nachman says Joshua came and cast down the spoils before God. Joshua said to him, Master of the universe, was it because of these small items that the majority of the Sanhedrin were killed? As it is written, and the men of Ai smote of them about 36 men, Joshua 7:5. And it is taught in a Baraita, 36 men literally were killed. This is the statement of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Nehemiah said to Rav Nachman, but were they precisely 36 men? Didn't it state only about 36 men? Rather, it is a reference to Yair, son of Manasseh, who was killed, and who was himself equivalent in importance to the majority of the Sanhedrin, so 36 men. Rav Nachman says that Rav says, what is the meaning of that which is written? The poor man speaks entreaties, but the rich man answers with impotence. That's Proverbs 18:23. The poor man speaks entreaties. This is a reference to Moshe, who addressed God in a tone of supplication and appeasement, but the rich man answers with impotence. This is a reference to Joshua, who spoke to God in a belligerent manner. The Gemara asks, what is the reason that Joshua is considered to have answered God with impotence? If we say that it is because it is written, and he laid them out before the Lord, and Rav Nachman says that this means that Joshua came and cast the spoils down before God. As a part of his argument, this is difficult. Is that to say that Pinchas did not act the same way in the incident involving Zimri and Cosby? As it is written, they stood up Pinchas and executed judgment, and the plague was stayed. Psalms 106:30. And Rabbi Elazar says, and he prayed is not stated, rather, and he executed judgment. So it's a play on the words Vayafalel and Vayitpalel. And so how so? He came and cast Zimri and Cosby down before God and said to him, Master of the universe, was it because of these sinners that 24,000 members of the Jewish people fell? And it is written, and those that died by the plague were 24,000, Numbers 25:9. Rather, Joshua's belligerence is seen from this verse. Why have you brought this people over the Jordan? Joshua 7, verse 7. As if he were complaining about God's treatment of Israel. This is too difficult. As Moshe also said in a similar statement, why have you dealt ill with this people? Why is it that you have sent me? Exodus 5:22. Rather, Joshua's belligerence is seen from here and from the continuation of the previously cited verse in Joshua. Would that he had been content and had remained in the Transjordan. Joshua 7:7. With regard to the verse that states, and the Lord said to Joshua, get you up. Why do you lie this way on your face? Joshua 7:10. Rabbi Shelah taught in a public lecture, the Holy One, blessed be he, said to Joshua, your own sin is even worse than that of the other Jews who sinned. As I said to the Jewish people, and it shall be when you have gone over the Jordan that you shall set up these stones. Deuteronomy 27:4. And you have already distanced yourselves 60 mil from the Jordan River, and you have yet to fulfill the mitzvah. After Rav Shelah finished his lecture and went out, Rav, who had been present but remained silent, placed an interpreter alongside him, who would repeat his lecture in a loud voice so that the public could hear it, and he taught. The verse states, as the Lord commanded Moshe his servant, so did Moshe command Joshua, and so did Joshua. He left nothing undone of all that the Lord had commanded Moshe. That's Joshua 11:15. This indicates that Joshua could not have been guilty of a grave offense such as delaying in setting up the stones. If so, what is the meaning when the verse states, get you up, hinting that Joshua was in fact responsible for some transgression? The matter would be understood as follows. God said to Joshua, you caused the Jewish people to sin, as had you not dedicated all the spoils of Jericho to the tabernacle treasury, the entire incident of Achan taking the spoils improperly would not have occurred. And this is what God said to him at Ai. And you shall do to Ai and her king as you did to Jericho and her king. Only its spoil and its cattle shall you take for a prey to yourselves. Joshua 8:2, instructing Joshua that the Jewish people should keep the spoils. The verse states, and it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man stood over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said to him, are you for us or for our adversaries? And he said, no, but I am captain of the host of the Lord. I have now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the ground and bowed down. Joshua 5:13-14. The Gemara asks, how could Joshua do so, bowing down to a stranger at night? But doesn't Rabbi Yochanan say it is prohibited for a person to greet another whom he does not recognize at night? And as we are concerned that perhaps the one he doesn't recognize is a demon, why was Joshua not concerned about this possibility? The Gemara answers, it is different there, as the stranger said to Joshua, I am captain of the host of the Lord. I have now come. The Gemara asks, but perhaps he was in fact a demon and was lying. The Gemara answers, it is learned as a tradition that demons do not utter the name of heaven in vain. And since this figure mentioned the name of heaven, he must have been speaking the truth. So now we're at the second half of the page, Amud Beit. So side B. The Gemara understands the words of the angel that Joshua encountered as a rebuke for some offense Joshua committed. The angel said to Joshua, understand in the afternoon you neglected sacrificing the daily afternoon offering because you are engaged in warfare, and now when it is dark you neglected Torah study. Joshua asked him, for which of these sins have you come to reprove me? The angel said to him, I have now come. That is, the fact that I did not come before, but waited until now when it is dark indicates that the sin of neglecting Torah study is the more severe one. So Joshua immediately acted to rectify the matter by deciding that he must devote more time to Torah study as it is stated, and Joshua lodged that night. That's Joshua 8:9, in the midst of the valley. So Ha-Amek, Joshua 8:13. And Rabbi Yochanan says this teaches that he lodged all night in the depth, but Omekah of halacha. So this teaches that he lodged all night in the depth of halacha, thereby atoning for his previous neglect of Torah study. Shmuel bar Unya says in the name of Rav, Torah study is greater than the sacrificing of the daily offerings, as it is stated, I have now come, demonstrating that the neglect of Torah study is a more serious offense than neglect of daily offerings. Abaye said to Rav Dimi, who descended to Babylon from Eretz Yisrael, so how do you explain this verse in the West? In the West, meaning Eretz Yisrael. Do not proceed hastily to litigation, lest you know not what to do in the end of it, when your neighbor has put you to shame. Debate your cause with your neighbor, and do not reveal the secret of another. Rav Dimi explained as follows. At the time that the Holy One, blessed be He, said to Ezekiel, say to Israel, your father was an Amorite and your mother a Hittite. Ezekiel 16:3. The spirit, Pashkonit, which is another name for the angel Gabriel, said before the Holy One, blessed be He, Master of the universe, were the patriarch Abraham and the matriarch Sarah to come now and stand before you, would you speak to them in such a manner and put them to shame? It is not stated, debate your cause with your neighbor and do not reveal the secret of another. The Gemara asked, but does the angel Gabriel have so much authority that he can reprove God in such a manner? The Gemara answers yes. As Rabbi Yossi, son of Rabbi Hanina, says, he, that is the angel Gabriel, has three names, Piskon, Itmon, and Sigron. He is called Piskon because he splits shaposek, words, like a posek, right? And argues with God on high. He is called Itmon because he conceals Sha'otem, the sins of the Jewish people. And he is called Sigron because once he closes, Shagomer, his arguments on behalf of the Jewish people, no one reopens the discussion. The verse states, had you prepared your prayers before your troubles come? Job 36:19. Rabbi Elazar says a person should always offer up prayer before trouble actually arrives. And had the patriarch Abraham not anticipated the trouble at Ai with the prayer he offered between Bethel and Ai, he would have been no remnant or refugee remaining among the enemies of Israel, a euphemism for Israel itself. So as Israel suffered a defeat at Ai from which there is ordinarily no recovery. Reish Lakish says the verse should be understood as follows. Anyone who concentrates himself and his energy in prayer in the world below will have no enemies in heaven above causing him trouble. Rabbi Yochanan says the verse should be understood in a slightly different manner. A person should always pray for mercy, that all heavenly beings should strengthen his power of prayer, and that he should have no enemies causing him trouble in heaven alone. The Mishnah teaches, from where is it derived that Achan's confession achieved atonement for him? The sages taught, likewise in a Braita, from where is it derived that Achan's confession achieved atonement for him? As it is stated, and Joshua said, why have you brought trouble on us? The Lord shall trouble you this day. Joshua 7:25. Joshua said to Achan, on this day of your judgment you are troubled, but you will not be troubled in the world to come. And elsewhere it is written, and the sons of Zerah were Zimri, and Achan, and Heman, and Kalkol, and Dara, 5 of them in all. 1 Chronicles 2:6. What do the words 5 of them in all serve to teach? All 5 sons are destined to receive a share in the world to come. According to the sages, Zimri is Achan, son of Zerah. Achan, son of Zerah, as will be explained. Since Achan has a share in the world to come, his confession must have achieved atonement for him. In one place, among the 5 sons of Zerah, it is written, Zimri, without any mention of Achan, 1 Chronicles 2:6. And in another place it is written, and Joshua took Achan, son of Zerah, Joshua 7:24. Rav and Shmuel both say that Zimri and Achan are one and the same, but they disagree about his real name. One of them says his real name was Achan. Why then was he called Zimri? He was called Zimri because he acted like Zimri. Just as Zimri engaged in sexual intercourse with the Midianite woman, Achan engaged in intercourse with a betrothed young woman, and the other one says his real name was Zimri. Why then was he called Achan? He was called Achan because he acted like a snake, she'iken, and caused the punishment of the sins of the Jewish people. The Mishnah teaches that if the condemned man does not know how to confess, they say to him, say simply, let my death be an atonement for all my sins. Rabbi Yehuda says that if he knows that he was wrongfully convicted, he should say, let my death be an atonement for all my sins except for this sin. The sages counter that if such a confession is acceptable, anyone who is sentenced to execution would state it to clear himself in the eyes of the public. The Gemara challenges, let them clear themselves. Why should the court intervene if the condemned man wishes to proclaim his innocence? The Gemara answers, they intervene so as not to cast aspirations on the court and on the witnesses who testify against them. The sages taught, an incident occurred involving a person who was being taken out to be executed after having been convicted by the court. He said, if I committed this sin for which I am being executed, let my death not be an atonement for all my sins. But if I did not commit this sin for which I am being put to death, let my death be an atonement for all my sins. And the court that convicted me and all the people of Israel are clear of responsibility. But the witnesses who testified falsely against me will never be forgiven. And when the sages heard this, they said, it is impossible to bring him back to court and reconsider the verdict, as the decree has already been decreed. Rather, he shall be executed, and the chain of responsibility for his wrongful execution hangs around the necks of the witnesses. The Gemara asks, isn't it obvious that he should be executed? Is it in his power to have the sentence overturned just because he says he is innocent? The Gemara answers no. It is necessary to state that the condemned man is executed when the witnesses retracted their testimony. The Gemara asks, even if the witnesses retracted their testimony, what of it? It is clear that the condemned man is to be executed, as the halacha is that once a witness has stated his testimony, he may not then state a revision of that testimony. In other words, a witness's retraction of his testimony has no validity. The Gemara answers no, it is necessary to state that the condemned man is executed even when the witnesses retracted their testimony and gave an explanation for having lied in their initial statement. This is like that incident involving Ba'aya, the tax collector, where it was discovered that witnesses had falsely accused the son of Rabbi Shimon ben Shattach, and revenge for the sons having sentenced to death for sorcery the witnesses' relatives. So the Mishnah says, when the condemned man is at a distance of 4 cubits from the place of stoning, they take off his clothes, they cover the man's front in front of him, and a woman is covered both in front and behind. This is the statement of Rabbi Yehuda. But the rabbis say a man is stoned naked, but that is wearing only that cloth covering himself in the front, but a woman is not stoned naked, but is stoned while clothed.